Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about the UEFA Women's Champions League. I'm your host, Dino Decespedes, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engle. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. It's back. The tournament, our favorite tournament, is back, the UEFA Women's Champions League, and I am excited to preview match week 5 with you.
I'm starting to get that feeling, man. Starting to get that little pain, as we hit the end of the league phase. 2 big weeks obviously left to go. I love that they're back to back, and I love that we're going to start to see. I mean, unfortunately, we're going to start to see some teams get eliminated mathematically. We're going to start to see some teams clinch this week, probably at least a top 12. Perhaps I'm not sure if anybody could clinch top 4. It's possible. But either way, we're going to start to see some moving and shaking. I think we're going to say goodbye to some teams. But either way, 9 big-time matches. I'm excited to kind of maybe a little light touch on each of the 9, just to kind of get everybody primed, get ourselves excited, get ourselves reoriented. In a lot of ways, your boy's still shaking off some of those NWSL cobwebs. We had the World Sevens going on. I mean, your head's spinning a little bit. But I think it's time to settle back into the Champions League. Get ready. Knock through these matches. Mr. Grant Engle, where you want to get started?
Let's get started with a beverage. As I also shake off some of the rust, as I called it match week 5, I'm thinking about the league season. It's match day 5. Even though it's 2 days, it's all a little confusing. It's all right. We'll get through this together.
That we will.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to the football.
Cheers to the football.
So, in typical sports podcast style, you have a conceit. You have an idea of how we should speak about these matches. What are you thinking, my good man?
Apologies for springing this on you, in the 11th hour here, but I know that you're a chronological guy. You like to keep things, even keel, straightforward in a very literal sense, and I like to shake things up a little bit. So minutes before, maybe seconds before we recorded, I proposed that we do a little draft, and let's just kind of draft the matches that we're most hyped about. No offense to anybody who comes in at the bottom. We're just going to look at the 9 and just say, this is the one that really kind of has me amped. And I love that that's going to give us a chance to kind of spend a little time with the teams that, we have some feelings for.
Okay, I can do that. I'm always down for a draft. That totally works for me. Let's pick which matches we're interested in. I got them up on the second screen. I got the big board ready. Chronological order be damned. Let's just talk about what piques our interest.
All right. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Go ahead. You do the honors, my good man.
All right. I like it. And shout out to you for doing a little bit of prep. I didn't do any prep other than coming with the idea here. All right, let's see. Scrolly. Who do I like? I think I'm going to have to go Manchester United, Lyon. This one's going down Wednesday, 12 p.m. I mean, these are 2 top 5 teams, if you think about, where the league phase is sitting. And I think when you think about Manchester United, obviously shot out of a cannon to start the season. WSL-wise, super hot start. Champions League phase, they win the first 3 matches. You look a little closer. They won all 3 by a single goal. And, not quite a murderer's row. Vålerenga, Atleti, and PSG for those those 3 big wins. It's tough to beat anybody. So shout out to United for getting those 3. But then they give all the goal differential back against Wolfsburg. they fall 5-2 in that one. So now they're sitting on an even goal differential. They're in 5th. And Lyon, a little bit of a, I don't know. How would you categorize that performance versus Juventus? I'm very curious.
Well, I chuckled at first because this was top of my big board as well. I think this is obviously very important. Manchester United holding on to that 4th spot. The Lyon result was weird. I think that's the first way I would categorize it. They go down 3-0 at halftime to Juventus. I'm sure anybody watching this program is well aware of it. When Tabitha Chewinga got that goal, I immediately looked up at the clock, and it was at at the hour mark, I want to say, somewhere right in there. And I just kind of sat there and said, they could win. They could win this match. They could get 3 more before the time expires. Now they didn't quite get there, but obviously they draw the obvious penalty on the handball inside the 18. Wendy Renard seals the draw, and you could just see the air deflated from Juventus. I just think it was a weird one for Lyon. They couldn't get a lot done, in terms of getting like good looks and finishing those looks. But the way they came back, I think they still managed to salvage some momentum.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, zooming out, I think the competition has been on another level this year. I think I just feel like Lyon Juventus 2 years ago is a total walk, kind of like all right, maybe we catch the highlights this one, but this was a competitive match, man. I mean, Juventus caught Lyon slipping in the first half a few different times, and they were able to defend, and just kind of make it difficult for Lyon. They weren't just they didn't give away anything easy. As the match kind of wears on, they kind of like lose their steam a little bit, and Lyon's able to find some openings. But I think parity wise, things feel a lot more balanced. I'm very excited to kind of get into it. We got 8 more to cover, so I want to kind of keep it moving. Well, do you have a quick prediction for this? And apologies, I said Manchester was 5th. You were right; they're in 4th. They've got a slightly better goal differential than Bayern. So this is actually the second best or second ranked team facing the 4th ranked team. So that brings up you. You're on the clock. Who do you got for your second matchup?
Yeah, and let me just say, I mean, that goal differential is going to come into play here. Like, do I think Lyon is miles better than United? Probably not miles better, but they're better, right? They do have more talent than United, and we've seen Lyon in past iterations. I don't know if this time is completely up yet. Sometimes they get one on you in the first 7 minutes, and you're reeling, and then they smell blood, and then they start piling in goals, and that would be very bad for the Red Devils. Real. Sharp analysis there. So that's one thing I'm looking out for is does Lyon get on the board early, and then do they get on the board often?
Yeah, and I think a quick, just to tag something onto that, it's going to be interesting to see how United bounces back versus that big loss versus Wolfsburg. That was your first big, all right, kind of smacking like welcome to the tournament kind of moment. I bet they're glad they got that performance out of their system before Lyon comes to town, because I agree with you. Lyon's more talented, miles more experience, especially in this competition. But on a good day, I think United could get them. I think this could end in a draw, no doubt. Sure. I mean, you look at the talent. United is not without talent either. So while you probably give Lyon the nod, I think this is going to be competitive. It was my number one match for a reason. But yeah, I'll kick it back to you. I'm excited to hear who you had second on your big board.
All right, I am going to take Atlético Madrid versus Bayern Munich.
Love it.
Big result from Atlético Madrid playing in the Netherlands. It was a comprehensive 4-0 victory over Twente. Mm-hmm. They pounced on Twente's mistakes, and Twente made some pretty egregious errors there. But then you also had the wonder strike by Julia Bartel from outside the 18 on the volley. Just an absolute fire.
I meant to go back and check the how UEFA puts together like all the goals from the match days. I wanted to go back just because that Bartel goal. I was like, I think that's the goal from the whole league phase, but I need to go back and fact check this. Didn't get a chance to do it, but I mean, it's got to be in the running. What an absolute banger!
It was phenomenal. And Joe Shannon, in the running for my favorite commentator of this tournament so far, said the same thing. Probably the goal of the league phase. I think you're right. I think we should do a comprehensive review, but it was just an absolute laser. But I think what's going to have to happen now is that like Madrid was playing a lot of that match. Atleti was playing a lot of that match on their terms versus Twente. And now I think they're probably, even playing at home, they'll probably have to shift into a little bit of underdog mode against Bayern, considering the talent on that side. Bayern, their last match against PSG, they concede to a great shot by Sakina Karshawi and immediately equalized through Dahlmann. And so, Bayern Munich, they have recovered nicely from when they got trounced by Barcelona. And, I think Atleti's going to certainly have their hands full, but I think they'll be up for the challenge.
Tons of intrigue in this match. I mean, to say Bayern's recovered nicely, a bit of an understatement. So in Frauen Bundesliga, they've hung 5 goals on opponents 2 straight match days, 5-1 win over Hoffenheim on the road, and then today's the 7th. This morning, a 5-0 win over 4th place Eintracht Frankfurt in an environment that was a little hellish. Like it looked like the crowd was into it. It looked cold. It looked nasty. And Bayern just went in there and didn't blink, So I think they're absolutely cooking. Atleti, you mentioned, big win, obviously, in the Champions League match day 4, but 2 straight, they lose in Liga F to Tenerife before the break, and then a 2-2 draw at home to Sevilla Saturday.
Yeah.
So, tough to know which Atleti is going to show up. And I think Bayern, if Bayern shows up, it's going to be a long day, I think, for Atleti. But again, a lot like the United Lyon matchup, this one could absolutely be competitive too. But I feel like there's a slightly bigger gap between these two sides, and I just think Bayern consistently has just been on it, and they feel like they're improving. Like we've been waiting for Momoko Tanakawa to kind of like take that leap. Feels like it's happening. We've waited for some of those players to kind of like join the part. Linda Dahlmann, a perfect example. That quick comeback goal, against PSG was a great example of that. Just kind of getting everybody involved. And if they're going to play like that, we might finally get the Bayern that we've been, sort of feeling could have been, like lingering just outside the door. I think we might be there. So I'm very, very intrigued by this matchup too.
Yeah, no doubt. And these 2 matches, the first 2 that we've talked about, Manchester United versus Lyon and Atleti versus Bayern, they're happening at the same time, noon Pacific time on Wednesday. And there's, like you talked about, like Manchester United is ahead. They're level on points with Bayern, but just ahead on 2 goals, goal differential. So we could see the swing happen in real time. If United gets pounced on by Lyon and Bayern's able to take care of business, you could start to see that drop by United, and we'll already and Chelsea's going to be playing at the same time there. So there's like guaranteed table movement at that 12 o'clock window on Wednesday.
Love it. Yeah, and I think only one more match day after this, so it's like now everybody's scoreboard watching, goal differential watching, trying to play that game as well. Trying to get some of the math nerds and data scientists come sit in on some of these strategy meetings, I'm sure.
Of course.
But let's go ahead. I want to talk about the third matchup on my big board. This one's got some intrigue for some different reasons. Give me Barcelona hosting Benfica, Wednesday, 9:45 a.m. Pacific in the early slot. What I'm interested about this one, and it's a sad one, is this isn't the same Barcelona side. Obviously, unfortunately, they've been hit really, really hard with injuries. Obviously, we know about Patri, Aitana Bonmati, Sama Pariuelo. Recently, Onabatie joins that list. On Twitter, where had it? Yeah, at Barca Fem on Twitter 2 days ago mentioned Onabatie out for around 3 weeks due to a myofibrillar injury in the right soleus muscle, of course. 3 weeks, that could really hurt. But what I'm going to be watching for, and not to kind of like downplay Benfica, but they're in a position where if they lose, they're one of 4 teams where if they lose, they're out. And I believe that if they don't win, I think they might actually need a win to stay in. So Benfica, it's been a great run, but we'll stick to kind of Barcelona for the moment. I feel like Barcelona might be at that point where one more injury, one more player that is unavailable in a big spot, it could be we could be there, because they squeak by Tenerife this weekend, a team that they smashed 5-1 last year at home, 2-0, and they didn't really get on the score sheet until like the 84th minute. Payet scores, and then Alexia scored a few minutes later to make it 2-0. But that one was absolutely in the balance. Barcelona only 7 shots in the first half, and a total push and pull. And that not quite full strength Barcelona didn't look like a side that looks like a slam dunk Champions League winner. if I can say that.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're suffering injuries from all those players and players of that caliber that you're talking about, yeah, they probably shouldn't look like Champions League winners at this moment. I want to think about it from the perspective of, imagine that you're a 17-year-old midfielder and you're playing on a team that has Aitana Bonmati, Alexia Putellas, and Patri. You probably don't go into the season thinking, yep, going to get a bunch of starts, going to get a bunch of Champions League starts.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are for Clara Sergio Diaz. Bottom line is there's immense talent still all over the pitch, but we're gonna have to see what how Sarah Jordi plays in these minutes, what the rotation looks like, how they're gonna kind of work through this. I'll be very interested to see. I don't know what a right soleus muscle is. I don't know if I have a soleus. I'm not 100% sure if I'm familiar with it at all, but I'm really interested to see, what Battier looks like when she gets back. And, kind of, I know she's not like one of like the main, threats, but like you said, like as the injuries start to stack up, you're like, oh, we need these glue players, especially. So I'm interested to see how they're looking. I still, they're going to finish top 4. They're going to go far in the tournament, but how does the ceiling adjust as some of these superstars sit out?
Yeah, and a little pushback on Bati. I think she's at that level of, if she's not on the pitch, it's like that's a real. I don't even want to call it downgrade, because Aisha Kamara, 18 years old, came in and played really well. I think got the assist on the winner to Payor. If not, was like heavily involved in the buildup, but played really well. Played a ton of minutes and does not look like an 18-year-old. But as the lights get brighter and the teams get trickier, the stakes get higher. It's tougher for young players to kind of like keep up. Sydney Schertenleib also made an appearance against Tenerife, but I'm just going to be curious to see what Barcelona looks like versus Benfica. Like, do they even if they're short staffed, do they look like Death Star light, or do they look like, oh, we've got to figure some shit out here? I think both of those outcomes are on the table.
And if they're in the figure it out stage, how good do they look while they're figuring it out? And are they capable of pushing Benfica around while figuring it out? I always kind of think about that of like, oh, okay, well, if they're in just the experimental phase, how do they look there? And you mentioned it, just a couple quick notes on Benfica. Obviously, we enjoy all our pals from Portugal.
Shout out
being
Vespa.
in a now or never. Shout out Vespa, always the legend. Being in a now or never situation for your tournament life, never good versus Barcelona, no matter who's on the field. Usually just like anybody they find to put in those Barcelona shirts are probably pretty awesome. And this is a common theme for teams at the bottom of the table like Benfica is right now. If you only manage 2 goals in 4 matches, you're probably having a pretty rough go of it. So it's not the tournament that they've hoped for. But like you said, they are kind of still in those growing phases, and I look forward to seeing like what they're able to capitalize on, even if I don't have super high hopes for them.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they're going to play tough, and they're kind of growing / reloading. So I mean, it's just not the year for them, and a tough schedule break. But that's our third pick. I think we've gone Wednesday so far. A lot of Wednesdays at the top of the draft, but. Who's 4th on your big board? Or actually, who's next on your big board?
Next on my big board is a Tuesday match. So look at that. In that noon window on Tuesday, your Real Madrid versus Wolfsburg. Oof. Real Madrid currently sitting on 7th in the table. Wolfsburg currently on 3rd. Real Madrid entered match day 4 on 7 points. And after the conclusion of their loss to also your Arsenal, they watched Bayern, Chelsea, and Wolfsburg jump them on the table. I think this is going to be a big one here. Like, not to overstate it, but if you lose this one outright, now you're kind of looking at it like, okay, is this a tumble? Is this the last Champions League experience where like one thing goes wrong and then we're all kind of looking at each other, we try to dig ourselves out of it, and more stuff goes wrong?
It's really tough because you look at their last three in the Champions League. They get the 2-1 win at PSG before we knew PSG was crap. The 1-1 draw versus pre-FC, kind of pre-FC's like last stand a little bit, but obviously you hope for more. Real Madrid at home. Mm-hmm. And then Real Madrid didn't play terrible versus Arsenal. Arsenal didn't really play great either at home. It was like two teams getting nowhere near their potential for most of the match, sadly. I think Madrid's going to be fine. Like they're sort of like in that, they're in the process of going from like second tier European team to like borderline first tier European team. And I think we're just gonna see some results like that. Now, I feel like all bets are off versus Wolfsburg, because Wolfsburg is kind of like Frauen Bundesliga, Real Madrid. Like big name, can show up and blow the doors off you, and can show up and also get absolutely hammered, mostly when they're playing against Bayern Munich. But Wolfsburg, they have the capability to kind of also go Jekyll and Hyde. So for that reason, these two teams, I'm really not sure which Real Madrid's going to show up, and I'm not sure which Wolfsburg is going to show up. But I do know that these two teams are, sort of swimming in the same pond, in terms of like where they're at in the league phase, and maybe where they're trying to get to as a club. I think both of them are knocking on the door of absolute top tier. Maybe within the next year or two, like with the right set of circumstances and moves. But I really love this matchup. I think on the pitch, there's a lot to love too, a lot of talent, top to bottom. What are you going to be looking for from these two?
Well, you mentioned, Wolfsburg getting mashed by Lyon. Since then, they've won 4 on the spin in all competitions, mm-hmm. and their goal differential across those 4 is 14 goals for, 5 conceded. But it is worth pointing out that they have conceded at least 1 in all 4 of those matches that they've mm-hmm. won. So their defense can be had, and I think that's what I'm looking for. And if there is one thing that for whatever reason always takes me a couple weeks into the group phase or now the league phase to remember, is the last performance by a Champions League team doesn't necessarily indicate what the next one's going to look like. So I think you're right. Real Madrid, super live, obviously. It's not like I would act like they're drawing dead. They're at home for this match. And Wolfsburg is even though Wolfsburg is a good team. So yeah, I'm going to look to see, what Madrid's attack looks like. Caroline Weir continues to just hit volleys and just be awesome all the time. And so if she's able to get something done, and, we'll see how Caicedo looks, but, they were in a little bit, Madrid was in a little bit of a dogfight. They're playing Real Sociedad on Saturday. I watched that match on DAZN in Spanish. I didn't quite catch everything the commentator was saying, but I was doing my best. And, Madrid, they needed a great save by Misa Rodriguez at the end and a sliding block from Maël Lecrar just to preserve that win. So, I think that all that just added to the intrigue for Tuesday's match for me.
Yeah, it should be really compelling. I think just from where these two teams are at in the table, because also top four is available to be either of these teams. I think if either get the 3 points, it's so funny too, because if either get the 3 points, top 4 absolutely on the table. But then you look at Real Madrid, they're on 7 points. Vålerenga, currently sitting in 13th, is on 4 points. So Vålerenga can at least catch them on points, and possibly on goal differential. They're in the neighborhood. Vålerenga is hosting Puri FC. So that just gives you the how close things are from 7th place where Real Madrid is and 13th place where Vålerenga is, and just how much we're going to see shake out this weekend. Incredibly exciting.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this feels like, obviously it's the first match I'm taking from the Tuesday slate. It's definitely the one I'm most, it seems like the main event of Tuesday in that 12 o'clock window, but I don't know. There are a couple other good matches in there too, so it'll be hard to lose. It may, if this one ends up being more of a blowout than we expect or something like that. There should be other viewing options available.
No doubt. All right, am I up?
That's you.
I am going to take. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to hold on to that one. Put that one in my back pocket. I think that'll be there once we come back around the other way.
Okay.
Give me Chelsea, AS Roma, Wednesday, 12 p.m. Roma, another team that needs a bunch of stuff to happen. Let me just double check this. They need to win to survive. So right now they're on the outside looking in, going to Chelsea.
Yeah.
Probably a big ask, fair to say. But Chelsea obviously coming off a good performance versus Barcelona. Follow that up with a 1-0 loss to Everton today in the WSL.
Sure.
Little tricky.
Yeah.
I think I counted Chelsea hitting the post 5. I counted 5 for sure. So it's at least 5. It could have been 7 or 8. They were peppering the goal, peppering the post and the crossbar all day long, and just whizzing shots past Everton's goal. But they don't get the win. They're in a little bit of trouble in the WSL. They're not quite in a place where it's Champions League or bust, but not out of the cards, right? I mean, City's got a nice lead, 10 matches in. And then, I don't know. We'll see what kind of bounce back they get, because for the first time this season, I went through the thought exercise. What if Chelsea gets blanked this year? What if this is the year where it just nothing breaks their way? They walk away empty handed. What do you do at that point? Like where do you start to look at? I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I did go through that thought experiment.
Yeah, I mean, Sonia Bonpastor, she's a legend. She's the only person walking the face of the earth who has won the UEFA Women's Champions League as a player and a manager. If they get blanked, she is sacked. More fired than maybe anybody has ever been fired. Like, you can't, if that happens, buddy, her head is spinning. She's shown the door so quickly. There's no chance they would keep her. I don't think that's going to happen. I get where you're coming from, though. It's weird. It's a weird result for them, for sure.
Well, right now, you got to say they're not the betting favorites to win the WSL, or I can't imagine they'd be with the gap that they're currently sitting at. And they can't be the betting favorites to win the Champions League. So we'll need some Sonia magic, I think, to kind of like maybe salvage this season. But we'll see what happens. I think you got to expect a big result here from Chelsea. Just a kind of a get right game for sure. But Roma, like I said, they're playing a little bit with house money, because it's pretty much a wrap at this point. I mean, I don't think they're going to expect to beat Chelsea, and even if they did, they're at the very, very, very bottom of the table. But this is a team that played Juve to a draw this weekend. 1-1. They're sitting at or near the top of the Serie A table. A lot of young players, but I think they're going to come out and play. They're going to play hard for sure. And Chelsea, I mean, what is your read on Chelsea? Like, I'm completely kind of baffled. I'm like, I on one hand, I can't believe how many good players they have, and I can't believe how, like, how do I want to say this? You brought up the Chelsea Americans a few weeks ago, and apologies if I butchered the name that you labeled them with. Leanne on her show talked about the same thing, about some of these players looking at Barcelona, not being intimidated. Naomi Gurma, Liz Thompson, Ellie Carpenter, whoever you want to throw in there. But then they follow that up with that performance today, and I'm just not really sure what to make of it. Very curious on your read on Chelsea so far this season, based on what we've seen in the WSL and Champions League.
It just seems like they're still kind of trying to find their way with Bonpastor. Like, how do we want to play? Do we want to sit back and, absorb some possession and hit you on the counter, like that kind of Bonpastor style we would see a lot at Lyon, even when you have an all-star team? Like, we don't necessarily have to dominate the ball, kind of that defensive-minded style. I think they're still trying to find their way. And you talk about them in the Champions League. So now they have 2 draws in the Champions League. And one of those draws is against Barcelona. So that's pretty awesome.
Good result.
But they have 2 draws with a plus 10 goal differential. And so that's a funny quirk to kind of like where it puts them on the table. But I'll tell you, it ceases to be a funny quirk if that somehow keeps you out of the top 4. But I'll tell you, all signs. I mean, not really. Even though all the signs don't point to them defending Stamford Bridge and crushing Roma, I just refuse to be surprised if that's how it turns out. I mean, we've already seen Roma get absolutely battered by Madrid and then Barcelona. Ellie Carpenter is just a menace right now. Like she is scoring. That goal she scored against Barcelona was an absolute laser. I don't think Roma's going to have any real chance at coping with her. And then you have, like you pointed out, like 8 other players that they really have to worry about. I want to make sure I got the name right. The commentator for that Chelsea Barcelona match, Jonathan Pierce, in the running for one of my favorite commentators in this tournament, described it as a scorcher, which I thought was great. It absolutely was a scorcher. And I just cannot tell you how much I love Ellie Carpenter as a right midfielder, right wing type of player in front of Lucy Bronze. I think that's an awesome look. Ellie Carpenter is the pride of Cowra, New South Wales, Australia. It's about a 4-hour drive from Cowra to Sydney. But at Ellie Carpenter's speed, I think she could get there in about 3 hours and 15 minutes.
I can tell you right now, I don't know where that is, but that's not a drive I ever want to make. I can't imagine what kind of wildlife you'll see on that drive.
See some sights.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So I'm excited about that one for sure. Was that mine? That was my pick, right? Yeah. Are you
yes,
up?
it was.
You're up.
My turn. All right, I guess we're going to do it. I don't know if this is who you're bouncing around in your head, but on the big board, I live and die by the big board, my good man. I'm going Tuesday in that noon window as well. Your Arsenal versus FC Twente.
Not who I had, but
real fascinated. Okay, all right. Real fascinated to kind of see where this one goes. And this is the fun part about the draft, is that we have all the matches all over the place. And now I just need to get to my notes. And so I'm going to filibuster clumsily by talking about my notes, which I'm very excited to do.
I'm sure impeccable,
to you.
Very well organized, I'm sure. All right, let's see. Arsenal continues to look super choppy. Reports this week about maybe some static in the locker room. Hate to see that. And there's just been a lot of talk about maybe not quite constructing this team in a way where you bring in like Olivia Smith and you're not really sure what how to construct the attack around her. And you talked about this, I think, very, very early in the season. It's like, what's the plan exactly? I think we're still kind of waiting on the plan. I tell you, the reason I had this one very low on my list, this Twente matchup has got me a little bit nervous, I'll say. I think Twente didn't quite not the performance that I think they would have wanted, obviously.
No.
But this is a team that still has 2 draws, like drew Chelsea, drew Benfica. They've got 2 points, like they've been in this tournament, in and around this tournament quite a bit. They lost a heartbreaker at Leuven, that you can't blame them for that, going into that cauldron, and, at least they kept it close. Shout out to them. But this match has, is there a Renee Slager's issue post-match written all over it? I'm not predicting that, but Twente is not the kind of team that you want to see when you're at that still sorting stuff out kind of situation. Arsenal's just not as good. They're not good enough, even though they're the defending champions in this tournament, to sort of play their way into the tournament. They're sitting in 10th after 4 games. They have yet to kind of like really lay the smackdown in a way that lets everybody know this team can win the title again, can repeat. So, just not really good enough, to kind of like not be playing at a specific level. When you get to match day 4, match day 5, doesn't mean they can't turn it around. But if this team kind of comes out and lays an egg a little bit against Twente, a 1-1, or God forbid a loss, or, just kind of like a flat 1-0 or 2, like something flat, I think the chatter, I think the volume of the chatter is going to start to get cranked up a little bit higher.
A loss would be a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
Like they cannot allow that to happen. I don't think they will. I
don't think so either, but it's not, it's not impossible. Right. But that's why I kind of was like, if it's a shitty performance, like, I think it could be just as bad.
Yeah. I think this is, and it is tricky. I love where your head's at on like Twente bouncing back from the bad 4-0 loss at home and then kind of finding their mettle. I'll tell you, man, going to London to play the holders might be a tough spot to kind of find that. But it, while Arsenal didn't look like the champs versus Real Madrid, I'm encouraged by the Alessia Russo brace, her getting into space, in the 18, being able to, she had that nice looping header. I think the looping header was the opener, if I remember. It happened 2 weeks ago. Who even knows what happened 2 weeks ago at this point? I just know the result happened and I watched it. But, top 8, Arsenal had to come into this tournament, playing their way into shape, not what, however we want to look at it. Top 8 had to be the absolute floor for them coming in. And so even a draw here would feel pretty gross for your Gunners. So I think they'll take care of business. I think it probably ends up being like a 2-0 or maybe like a 3-1, and Arsenal kind of pushes it out late, like with the result never being totally in doubt. But we'll see. That's why they play the games.
A draw here would keep them way out of the top 8. And then they've got that nightmare matchup looming, match day 6 at Leuven. Don't want any part of that. And now it looks like Arsenal's going to have some stakes tied to that one. I hate that. And yeah, it's just a real hodgepodge at the bottom of the standings here. And Arsenal's I think they're going to get the win. Like zooming out, just kind of let me shake off all my, my bad vibes. I think they're going to get the win, but they're going to have to work for it. They're absolutely going to have to work for it. Twente's not the kind of team, from what we've seen of them, that just gets their ass kicked 2 weeks in a row, like, or 2 matches in a row. It's like that 4-0 loss was shocking enough, So I think we had to see any of that leading up to it. So we'll see. But you took Arsenal and Twente, so I'm up. Who else is left? Okay, that leaves where I was going to go, where I might have gone last round. Give me Paris Saint-Germain versus
there we go.
OH Leuven. Leuven coming off a tricky 2-0 loss to Club Bruges before the Thanksgiving break in the Belgian Super League. PSG 2 wins in a row in the Premier League. I never know how to pronounce it, but the French Premier League.
I think it's just
where the Women's League.
Premier League.
You say Premier League? I can't, but I can't say the Premier League. For the French Premier League. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, PSG 4. They beat Saint Etienne 4-1. They beat Marseille this weekend 5-1. Not sure what to take from it. Good to see them knocking balls in, but they still have a little bit of a bumper car feel to their offense and their attack, and just kind of generally how they do business. They brought Yaya over from Brazil. That was exciting. Great to see Yaya kind of getting introduced. But they've got their hands full this week against Leuven. Leuven, obviously, we've been hyped about them since the preview show. It's a preview show for whatever reason. I think we have just gotten excited about this team, and now they're to a point where they're less cute than they were before. Now it's just like, oh shit, PSG are they just going to get? Is it just going to be straight? Is it going to be 6 L's for PSG? I think we're swimming around in those waters, but I think Leuven's going to give them a game. I think Leuven really wants a result, can absolutely get a result, can get a big result if things go their way. But PSG, they have it within them to put out a performance. So with all that said, what are you going to be expecting?
This is where the weirdness of the tournament, and maybe like there is some level of weirdness, but we can maybe kind of predict some of that weirdness, if that makes sense. You rightfully mentioned PSG is pointless right now. You can maybe make that argument about some of their attacking style.
Pointless is funny,
but it's like a funny word. but I mean it in the sense of they have 0 points in this tournament. And going into it, I didn't expect a ton from them. I had said like, hey, I'm not high on the French squads outside of Lyon, and that's proven. It looks like like I was fairly prescient, but it would be outrageous if they don't at least come away with something in this stage. Like 6 L's would be disastrous.
Crazy.
And we know, like, and our good pal Asil Tufaili has talked to us about, PSG is not really as committed as they should be to their women's program. They need to figure that out immediately, because there's obviously huge growth available there, and they have good players, and they should be able to do it. But like, this feels like one of those weird ones where, yes, on balance, Leuven has been playing better than PSG all league phase. So of course, in a weird setting like this, why wouldn't PSG finally find their footing and get a home win? Like, it just kind of feels like one of those weird ones. And I'm totally with you. Leuven can win this game outright. They can travel to Paris and get it done. But I don't know. There's a little bit of, and it's not scientific and it's kind of dumb. I will never shy away from that. Is this when the bill comes due? Like, is PSG just due to finally put in a performance in this Champions League?
No. And it's because they're playing.
Probably not.
They're playing those big dogs from Belgium. No, I mean, you look at Leuven, like, they've scored in 3 of the 4 Champions League matchups, like, as debutantes. The last couple of years we've been watching this tournament, the bottom rung teams put forth bottom rung score lines. 3-0, 4-0, 5-1. Okay, I was excited. We got on the board. Okay, big high fives all around. But this Leuven guy has scored in 3 of the 4 matchups. We joked about that visit to Barcelona. They held Barcelona to 3 at Barcelona, like basically a team that was just didn't exist on the radar, globally, 6 months ago. But here we are. And PSG just has put forth they haven't put forward anything in this tournament. If you look at their season in totality, there's a little bit more there to chew on. But, if I'm putting on my betting hat, I mean, there's got to be a ton of value on Leuven heading to PSG, just with the brand name disparity. But I think on the pitch, this one's going to be an absolute banger too. I think fun matchups. Leuven is tenacious, super opportunistic. Like they'll just carve you up. In terms of like when and how they use like those opportunistic runs. And then PSG, ton of skill, ton of athleticism, ton of creativity. So I think style, if styles make fights, this one, stacks up to be like a real, just, I don't know, like one of those, like not quite the pay-per-view match, but like the lead into the main event that ends up, maybe outshining some of those other, marquee matchups.
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, we talked about, PSG and my principle that I adopt from collegiate American football of they ain't played nobody. PSG, they tend to beat up on those teams in the Premier League. On September 27th, they lost 6-1 to Lyon. We saw them get smashed 4-0 by Wolfsburg in the Champions League. But then they played Real Madrid tough. They played Manchester United pretty tough. So they got it. They got the performance in them somewhere. It's just, I think you're right. I'm surprised this one lasted so long in the draft, because there's going to be a lot said either way of, okay, well, PSG, they figured it out, but is Leuven, is the clock starting to strike midnight a little bit on this kind of little bit of a Cinderella story? Or, did PSG cough one up again, and they still can't beat good teams. And it turns out this Belgian side we didn't expect is a really good team.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait. This is the match that I almost took last round, so I really deliberated. So I'm glad it was still there for me when we came back around. But I think you're up. We got 2 more matchups.
All right, let's go with the first match kicking off Tuesday, 9:45 a.m. Pacific time, the Lord's time zone on December 9th. St. Pölten versus Juventus. Juventus coming off that kind of soul-crushing draw versus Lyon, but usually you would be happy with a draw versus Lyon, but not when you're up 3-0 at halftime in your home stadium, and then you lose those 2 points basically at the final whistle. I think they should hang their hat on that draw a little bit. You scored 3 goals against Jonathan Heraldes coached Lyon side. This feels like the definition of a get right game. And for all of our European pals, I'm not sure what they call them over in Europe, but the get right game is exactly what it sounds. It's your opportunity to play an inferior opponent and kind of shake off the cobwebs. I think things are probably trending that way. Now St. Pölten, though, they showed a lot of resilience. They clawed back and got a draw versus Vålerenga for their first points of this tournament. St. Pölten has 1 more point than Paris Saint-Germain, so they should be pretty happy about that. And as we see with STP these past couple of years, if they're any indicator, we'll see you again in this tournament next year, and hopefully the results fare a little better for you.
Yeah, no doubt. I actually think that they might be under some heat in their local league. I'll double check it, but I don't want to get sidetracked.
I think you were telling me that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we'll see. I wanted to ask you this because when we ranked our teams a few weeks back, and I think we made predictions on who we thought would be top 12 and who we thought wouldn't. Not famously, but to some fanfare, I think I had Atlético Madrid outside my top 12, and I think you had Juventus outside your top 12. And that was one of our big points of contention that somehow in the moment we couldn't figure out. Or I'm not going to put you in that. I couldn't figure out who had what.
No,
and
I was probably there with you.
Sleepy boys, you already know. I wanted to ask you, has your opinion, because I've been higher on this Juventus side for sure, all season, champions of Serie A. I kind of thought they were a bullshit team last year, and they didn't really play that well last year, but there were some flashes. But this year, I think they've kind of grown up a little bit, kind of leveled up a little bit. I'm curious, as you've watched this Juventus side, have they, since you had them outside the top 12, have they done anything to kind of change your perspective? Have you picked up anything, noticed anything that you're like, maybe I didn't really kind of like lock into this, but I kind of like this part of their game.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things I had mentioned, like going in, I was like, I don't know, Bonancea's older. Sorry, no disrespect there. She's a great player, still playing well. But I had mentioned like Bonancea is later in her career. Girelli is later in their career. How are they going to be able to play? And you know what, Grant? Pretty well still. Turns out they are good, and they're able to score, and they're able to move the ball around the field, and they play with a level of toughness. They play that defensive Italian style in spots, but they have players who can be dangerous in the final third. So they've absolutely changed my mind. I was too low on them going into the tournament. Absolutely. I'll wear that one, coach. I'll raise my hand there.
Yeah, I mean, I was with you on Atleti too. I mean, when I saw that score, I was like, oh, got that one wrong. All right, we've got one more match to hit. I'm not going to draft it just because, I mean, this is the 9th pick in a two player draft, a 2-team draft. So I think we're both going to go ahead and pick this one just to round it out. Wednesday, 9:45 a.m. 14th ranked Vålerenga, 12th ranked Puri FC. Some real stakes for this one. Obviously, when that 12th place matters as much as it does, 12 versus 14, a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, it's just an embarrassment of riches in this tournament. I mean, once Paris FC scratched out that 1-1 draw versus Real Madrid, like they knew they had created for themselves a 2-match stretch to punch their ticket into the knockout stage. And also, again, speaking of things I may have been wrong about, or that I was definitely wrong about Juventus, Perry FC could send a personal message of "shut up, Grant" to me when I talked about how low I was on the two French sides outside of Lyon. They took it, they needed to take advantage of a 10-player Benfica, and they did when Benfica made those critical errors in that match. So now here they are, and this is the first match of the 2-match stretch. Can Perry FC make a cool run like they have in Champions Leagues past?
Yeah, I mean, credit to them for getting it together, because I mean the start that they put forward was not kind of what you'd want to see. I mean, well, actually, rewinding back, wasn't it just like a draw to Leuven? Yeah, 2-2 to Leuven, and then they lose 4-0 at Chelsea. And I think at that point we're like, all right, this team's got the stink on them. But to your point, 1-1 versus Real Madrid, 2-0 win versus Benfica, and that 2-week stretch you're talking about. This at Vålerenga is week 2 of that 2-week stretch, because match day 6 they host Barcelona, and who knows, that there might not be.
Sorry, this is week 2 of the stretch.
Yeah. No, there might not be stakes to that Barcelona matchup. That's an extra kind of fork ball that could make things really interesting. But this Vålerenga, you got to get this one. But I mean, I've been really impressed with Pre-FC. 5 points out, from 4 after that start. They're playing pretty solid, domestically in the Premier League. They're getting more production, from players other than Clara Mateo. So I don't want to say they're dangerous. They're certainly tracking towards top 12. But on the flip side, you look at Vålerenga, just one spot outside that mix. And what have we been talking about? Karina Savic, Olag Tveten. When are they going to score? We know what they've done in top Syria, and they lit that league on fire last season. And we just hadn't seen it, and I think we got a little bit of that, against St. Pölten, which was great. But are they going to be able to carry that forward? They can. And Pre-FC, an opponent that will give them opportunities. So, I mean, it's weird that this was like our ninth ranked matchup, because like, as I'm talking about, I'm like, fuck, I really want to see this one.
No, you're totally right on this. I was just thinking the same thing, because, you're so spot on. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were just like, we got to see it in this tournament from Tveten and Shavik.
Yep.
And then they get those two, they jump out 2 ahead, and frankly, they squander the lead. And not Shavik and Tveten specifically, but the team squanders the lead. You end in a 2-2 draw versus STP, a team that you had to go in there thinking that you could beat. And when you're up 2-0, then you cough that lead up. And now you're looking at a scrappy Perry FC team. You're like, okay, well, at least we have it at home. Let's see if we can grab all 3 points here. But I just gotta think they're probably in a little bit of a weird headspace, and that's probably gonna make for an interesting match here.
I agree with you. And Vålerenga, they're out of season, right? Yeah, so they only have Champions League matches left in the calendar. So we've seen that go both ways. We've seen, like, I kind of feel like at the front end of it, like right after top Syrian ends, there's a little bit of an advantage because you're sharp, you're conditioned, you've been playing, like you're down the stretch, and you've got a little bit of extra rest, right? But as like it goes further and further, it's really tough to like be like, all right, we have 1 match this month, or 2 matches this month, and we're 2 months out of season. So I think we're still at that point where the season is still fresh enough where Vålerenga is still going to be riding a little bit of a, just some of that muscle memory from last season, combined with the chance to get a little bit healthier. So I think Vålerenga is super duper live in this matchup at home. And actually, I'm going to say it right now. Vålerenga's got at Bayern Munich match day 6. I'm not going to flat out close the door on that result either. The 2-2 draw to St. Pölten, obviously a huge disappointment, but there's something about this team, obviously champions, professionals, mid-career, late career, a lot of like seniorish experience type players. I think this team still has something to say in this tournament, and I think this Pre-FC matchup is going to be a great platform to do a little bit of that.
It's going to be happening at the same time on Wednesday as the Barcelona-Benfica match. If that Barcelona-Benfica match gets out of hand, it's an easy switch over to Vålerenga Perry FC. So yeah, it goes last in our draft. I think it's maybe probably a better watch than STP Juventus, but I mean, who knows? Like, we've talked about how Juventus has been good this year too. So you can't lose in any of these matches. Plenty of intrigue to go around. Again, I know I say it about everyone. I'm just looking forward to watching the football and then being like, oh, wow, totally wrong about this thing. But then also with us, I think more often than not, obviously, you guys could attest to this as pals of the show. Exactly right on plenty of stuff, too.
Yeah. I don't know, man. SCP coming off a 2-2 draw. They beat Newlangbach 4-0. They beat RB Salzburg 6-1. I don't know. It could be a moment for STP. I'm not really sure. I think they belong right in that 8th spot. Playing some decent football. And Karita Schluter, you already know. Must see TV every time out. You already know what time it is. Quick episode calendar. Obviously, this has been your Champions League Matchday 5 preview. We'll have a Matchday 5 recap coming very soon. End of this week, I'm sure. And then there'll be I don't know if we're going to do a Matchday 6 preview or if we'll lump those into the same episode. Either way, we'll sort it out. And there will absolutely be a Matchday 6 recap. So at least 2 more Champions League episodes coming your way before the end of the year. We'll also squeeze in a 2025 best 11 before we get out of here. So definitely make sure you're subscribed. Follow your boys on the socials. Much appreciated in advance. All right, man. I think we did it. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Top Syrian, and I know we've just kind of been avoiding the topic here. So if there's going to be one last that I talk about, all right, let's do it for our pals in beautiful Bergen, Norway, which I hope to visit at some point here in the future. 20-year-old Norwegian international Signe Gaupset from the wonderful club SK Brann, based in beautiful Bergen, Norway, has agreed to terms with a contract to join Tottenham Hotspur. This news happened all the way back on November 21st, and I just want to be honest with you. I don't want to talk about it. I didn't want to mention it. I didn't like it. She reunites with Coach Martin Ho.
That part's kind of cool.
Who coached SK Brann. That part is that's kind of cool. She reunites with Martin Ho, who obviously coached SK Brann in their awesome Champions League run 2 seasons ago. Real bummer to see her leave Brann. But it's a part of the development, and I think I saw some interesting conversation on Blue Sky that kind of was bouncing around in my head a little bit too, is the idea of sometimes you have these amazing star talent level players, which Signe Gaupset absolutely is. Announced herself. Your boys had it early, by the way. Everybody in Bergen knew, and your boys here in good old US of A, maybe not so good old, but in the United States of America, we knew it too.
In old US of A.
Yes, in old US of A. Circling the drain USA, some people might think. But we saw it a while ago, but she made her star turn during the Euros, and it's cool. It's interesting to see her go to a mid-level club like Tottenham Hotspur, and I'm sure that brings you great joy as an Arsenal fan for me to refer to Tottenham as a mid-level club. But instead of her being like thrust into like Lyon, Barcelona, you know what I mean, just like dropped into like one of the superstar teams, now she kind of gets a little bit more of like a step up, a build up. She's going to play elite competition still. So Signe Gaupset, the Lynx, as she is so nicknamed in Norway. I'm excited to see the continued upward trajectory of her career, but real bummer for all our pals in Bergen. So our condolences, the friends.
Yeah, I mean, excited for Gaupset for sure. You know, Tottenham, what do you do? I mean, other place you could land it, but we'll talk about that later. But I mean, I love your point about landing in a great next step for Gaupset. Because that same 23 Champions League where we discovered Signe Gaupset, go back and check the tapes if you want. We had to have been the first English-speaking show to talk about Signe Gaupset on the planet, I'll say. But Kika was a key player in that tournament too. And to your point, goes to Barcelona, a little bit buried, some injuries. I mean, an interesting point in time now for Barcelona to see if Kika can get back into the mix. But great call by you. First of all, celebrating Signe Gaupset, one of the patron saints of the ITC for sure. But
no doubt,
a good landing spot. I like the landing spot, and it's a friendly coach, a friendly situation, and I'm excited to see her play. I'm excited to see her play in WSL. Absolutely, she's got a game built to wreck the WSL. So I'm fucking excited about that.
I really think she does, man. Yeah,
it's gonna be so cool.
And if the WSL is gonna be anything like the English Premier League, then I do not look forward to Manchester City being at the top of the table and playing well, and then somehow inexplicably every time we play Tottenham, they turn into 2009 Barcelona for some reason. And I just cannot understand why we can't consistently beat Tottenham. But I digress. We'll see how it goes there.
Yep. We'll keep tracking it. In the meantime, a lot of Champions League action to track for sure. This has been an episode of your channel. Thank you for watching, listening, hanging out. If you enjoyed the show, we do this every single week, sometimes twice a week. This week will be a twice a week show for sure. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Check us out wherever you like to watch or listen. Make sure you're following us, liking us, subscribing, commenting, leaving us a review, telling your friends about it, or telling a friend about it. You have to tell a bunch of friends. That was always one of the quirks that I used to bother me when I used to talk to me about marketing. People would be like, I have a great product. If one person will just tell 10 people, we'll be cool. I'm like, bro, like how many people you think 10 people are going to tell them what to do, and now they're going to go do something? Don't tell 10 people.
I don't want to know 10 people.
I don't want to know 10 people. I definitely don't want to know that. I want to know, unless they rock with us and leave us in their comments. We have probably like 50 people in our comments that I definitely want to know more of and about.
No, that's fair.
But don't tell 10 friends. Tell one friend. But really tell them. Let them know what time it is out here. And if you want to continue to support the show,
like
patreon.com/into-channel. Great way to do that. Into the channel merch, even greater way to do that. Links to all the above and much, much more in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Engle, for champion of champions, down the stretch, mid-tournament, pre-tournament, post-tournament, previews, recaps. It doesn't really matter what I throw at this guy. Draft, chronological. He's just swinging, knocking shit out of the park left and right. He's the Barry Bonds of this podcast. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. Thank you for that. And, we are the champions of champions. I mean, look, you're wearing your Arsenal beanie. They are the defending, reigning Women's Champions League title holders. I'm wearing the Florida Panthers hat, the 2-time defending Stanley Cup winners.
Let's go.
Sometimes every once in a while, our teams are able to come out here and lift some trophies. And there's nobody we would rather lift trophies with than all of you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for always dropping knowledge in the comments. We always appreciate it very much. And we will see you all next time.